Hastings Museum of Agricultural Heritage in Stirling looks like modern industrial buildings. It's different inside. One steps back 60 years. The dairy building shows the cheese-making process from barn to sale room. It was a time when farmers ran the cheese factories as cooperatives. They added value to the milk by making high-quality cheddar cheeses, and they used local resources to feed their cows and to fuel the factories.
Yeah, my name is Ron Reed. I'm the fundraising chairman here at the Hastings County Agriculture Museum here in Stirling, Ontario. Just a little background history of why this all happened. The Hastings County area were quite well known for the cheese for many, many years, and also they thought that it would be a good idea that we capture the history of the cheese making in this area. It all started back in 1986 when the International Plow Match was here in Stirling, and they thought it was a good idea, maybe we'd build a museum here. So one thing led to another, and 10 years later we got ourselves a museum. And our first part of our museum is the dairy building, which is a lot to do with the cheese making and the butter and milk and all that was so important to this area. At one time at the turn of the century, there's many, many cheese factories. Matter of fact, in our local area, there was 14 concessions in the township of Rodden, and there was 14 cheese factories here in the turn of the century. In 1928, there was 273 cheese factories in central Ontario. Just to give you an idea, there was 28 cheese factories in Prince Edward County. It was very, very important to this area. Now, today, there's only about 4 of them left. So that's why that we feel that this museum is so important. We have one of the interesting things of the thousands of artifacts that are here. This barrel come from El Dorado, Ontario. It was a cheese barrel that was sent to the Chicago World's Fair in 1897. It was sent there. Now we found out this was sitting in a barn, and the chap knew where it had come from and what the reasons were behind it. So the barrel come here about 7 years ago, and a year ago the certificate for the cheese that was sent to the World's Fair was sent to us by a lady from Bancroft, and either one of these people knew each other. But as you can see, we got the barrel, the cheese went to Chicago's World Fair, and we've got the certificate. And the lady's name was Miss Annie Alvier. She was a local lady back there. She was 23 years old at the time that she made the cheese. And matter of fact, she's buried right here in Stirling Cemetery, and she has relatives right here in the local area. But it was kind of interesting that these two people didn't know each other, but the two pieces went together. Where the cheese was stored after it was brought out of the vats, back in the old days, these were all 91, 92 pound cheese that they would store in the curing room, and the cheese would be stored there until it was cured and dried, and then it was waxed and boxed and sent to Belleville, Ontario to be shipped actually all over the world.
The cheddaring process consists of cut into 6-inch strips. And this is fitted into the curd mill, manual sizes. The whole while we run through the curd mill.
In the old days, as we say, the old days, these 92 pound cheese were set on these shelves, and the way they marked them, they had a marker here they put ink on, and before so they could keep track of everything, they put this mark on the cheese here, and that gives the month and the day and the year of the cheese and the registration number, which, by the way, in the turn of the century there was over 1,250 registered cheese factories and creameries in the province of Ontario. Well, that's hard to believe today. And also there was a VAT number, and that's how they kept track of who made the cheese and what VAT number it was that come out of. Also, this was they called the Canada marker here, and this was all inked up, and the cheese was rolled down through that, and Canada come out on the cheese. And the reason for that was a lot of our cheese was shipped to overseas, particularly in the war years and the war effort. A lot of our cheese was sent to England. If you went over and asked anybody in England today what they thought of our Canadian cheddar, they just love it, because like I say, they learned about our cheese in the war years.
The cheesemakers competed with each other, both in local and international competitions.
Okay, this is the Dutch clock. This clock was used to sell the cheese that they took down to Belleville. People would go down to a warehouse just south of actually the Belleville General Hospital, where the Belleville General Hospital is today, and just south of that, down at the bay. This clock was in the warehouse, and all the buyers would come here to Belleville to buy the cheese, and this is how they bought it on this clock. This clock would handle up to 95 buyers, and it run in a counterclockwise fashion, and it seemed to serve the purpose. They used this clock, I believe, until 1976. That was used in most of the cheese factories. A lot of them used just slab wood as to create steam because they needed that, or coal. This particular one here used slab wood, and this is what run most cheese factories or creameries in their day. Without this here, they couldn't make cheese. They had to have steam, and the steam was used to heat up the curds so they could make the cheddar cheese. It was a real important part of the cheese factory. And normally the cheesemakers' kids brought it in 4 o'clock at night after they got home from school, and it was ready for the next morning about 5 o'clock when they would fire it up. As time went on in the late 50s, of course they went to oil, and fired boilers. Pipe fitters. Cheesemaker had to know a lot of trades, and steam or pipe fitting was one of them. Actually, a cheesemaker in the later years, he had to have a Class 4 engineer's license to run the factory, because he had to be able to run the boiler.